You know what you are, Abraham Lincoln? You're a dirty liar. Because you talked about giants in mounds, and these guys found a giant in a mound, which means they're also liars. Because science. Check this out. I bought access to the Chicago Tribune's digital archives for another project I was working on. But while I had it, I thought it would be fun to see if they had any articles about giant humans being found. So I typed in giant human bones, and there's more than 1,000 hits. This one from Sunday, October 13th, 1895. Giant of other days. Body of a man 9 feet high dug up in California. Biggest human being on record, although somewhat shrunk since he was alive, measured by Professor Wilson of the Smithsonian Institution. Shocker. Presumably a prehistoric Indian. The corpse of the biggest man that ever lived has been dug up near San Diego, California. Love to know how they know he was the biggest man that ever lived, but who cares? The mummy, for in such a condition the remains were found, is that of a person who must have been about 9 foot high in life. As to the accuracy in the estimate, there can be no question, inasmuch as the cadaver has been carefully inspected and measured by Professor Thomas Wilson, curator of the Department of Prehistoric Anthropology in the Smithsonian Institution. I would like to find Professor Thomas Wilson's giant. Let's look it up.
Professor Thomas Wilson, Smithsonian Giant Bones. Where are they?
The claim about Professor Thomas Wilson, Smithsonian discovering giant bones is a fabrication. There's no credible evidence of him finding giant bones. Sure, the Smithsonian has debunked giant bones as a conspiracy theory. Imagine that. Well, there's that. Science. He didn't find them. He didn't carefully inspect them. Definitely didn't happen. This was just a fever dream. They were having a fever dream, and somebody wrote a newspaper article about it. Whatever. Believe whatever you want to. Okay, so that's just one of them. This article here is why I'm making this video. I read it the other day. The other one was just a bonus. We are looking at the Chicago Tribune, Sunday, December 25, 1898. Christmas paper. Hey, Billy, what do you want for Christmas? A giant skeleton. Raffle for a husband. Okay, here we go. Huge human bones. Discovery of the skeleton of alleged prehistoric man. Possibly a mound builder. It was just known in American history that there were giants in the mounds. You find a mound, you find a giant. You dig it up and you make money selling it, probably to the Smithsonian. What did Lincoln say about this? The eyes of the species of extinct giant whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as our eyes do now. The statement links the ancient past to the present by suggesting that the people who built the mounds gazed upon the same natural wonder as those living today. Yeah, the people who built the mounds were giants. Isn't he like Honest Abe? He's like known for being truthful. You know what you are, Abraham Lincoln? You're a dirty liar. Because you talked about giants in mounds, and these guys found a giant in a mound, which means they're also liars. Because science. A discovery of the greatest scientific interest was made when the pickaxes of Edward W. Gebhard and Edward Kaufman of this place disturbed the long repose of a skeleton that had been buried for no one can tell how many thousands of years. With the bones just found for its framework was surely not of a race of which history has given us any record. Imagine if the world understood that the Bible is a history book, documenting thousands of years of human history and potentially the entire history of the universe. And in this book, it tells the story of giants. Factually, yeah, there's giants. There were giants in those days and also after, when the sons of God came into the daughters of women and produced children by them. See, this is why these giants were factually discovered and historically documented. But over the process of time, basically science just said, no, nuh-uh. Like the official word from science and the Smithsonian is nuh-uh. That's what it is, which makes sense because giants show that the Bible is true and that the theory of evolution is not true. You don't evolve from cavemen blah, blah, and then into giants and then devolve into us, the averages. This information validates the Bible and disqualifies the theory of evolution necessarily. So they just go, no, didn't happen. Nope, this report, nope, high on goofballs, fever dream, didn't happen. Okay, well, anyways, we will read this as the journalists intended, which is believing that the thing that they are reporting on that happened yesterday is true. Let's see here, continuing on. A number of local practitioners have examined the bones and they have unanimously agreed that the find is no less important a one than the skeleton of a prehistoric man, who was probably one of the mound builders, the relics of whose sojourn in the Miami Valley have been so eagerly sought after by archaeologists all over the country. That's it. Done. I don't care. Nobody cares about what's true. I'm leaving. Stupid. Okay, I'm coming back. I have to report on this. It's really, really frustrating, though. Okay, so now we have Dr. A-hole at the Smithsonian. Like, I found the giant. Yeah, it's 9 foot, definitely, certainly 9 foot. It didn't. Smithsonian's like, that we didn't. There's no giant. We didn't find the giant. That guy didn't exist. It doesn't matter. And then this says, the relics of whose sojourn in the Miami Valley have been so eagerly sought after by the archaeologists all over the country. Why were they so sought after? We all want to have a giant skeleton in our house. At present, the bones are on exhibition here. Don't believe us? You can come to this town in Miamisburg and you can see the giant bones because they're on exhibition here. In fact, they are serving as a star attraction. Yes, that was quite the sight, I'm sure. And I would have driven however many feet my horse could tromp to go see it myself. I doubt I would have had enough money to have a horse. I would have walked there, a 2 days journey. Let's see here. They're serving as a star attraction, for the people are proud of the fact that once in this neighborhood there lived a race of prehistoric giants. The people are proud of the fact that once in this neighborhood there lived a race of prehistoric giants who erected the largest earth mound in the country and then disappeared, leaving behind them fragments of stone, pieces of pottery, and woven cloth made of bark to show that they were once the owners of the valley. How long ago this was, where the mound builders originally came from, what they looked like, whether or not they will be proven someday to have been the long-looked-for link between man and the lower animals. That's not how the missing link would work. It would be a link between an animal and a human, not a super massive, super giant, I guess technologically advanced creature that we can necessarily not have evolved from. Science. So we have the skeleton, factually. We have it on exhibition. People are excited that there were giants there. Now the question is, who are they? Where did they come from? And when did they come from? So now this is where science gets to do its magic.
Science, the guardians of the past.
These are questions that the residents of this locality would like above all things to have some scientist decide. And the science man comes in and he goes,
well, it's definitely not a giant from the Bible. I'm sure it's not a giant from the Bible. No. It's probably definitely not real. Yeah, it's not real. No.
Or it's the missing link. The whole question of man's first appearance on the earth is being fiercely discussed since the skeleton was found. Those who base their belief on the Bible are arrayed against the men of science. That's my life, that's my life, that's what I do. Those who base their belief on the Bible know where humans came from and know where these giants came from as well. And science is going to come in here and say it's not the Bible. We don't know what it is. It's not the Bible, and if we have to just get rid of all of this evidence, we will, because science. Those who base their beliefs on the Bible are arrayed against the men of science, who point to the researchers of Bishula, de Parthe, Faskiner, and Prestwich. These stuffy naturalists.
But have you gone looked at the work of Prestwich and Stoffman and Prestwich? If you don't understand science.
In support of the assertions that man has lived here for thousands of years, longer than Holy Writ would seem to admit. The implements found hereabouts, it is pointed out, must have far antedated the period of the flood. Talking about the flood, talking about giants, talking about the flood, talking about the Bible, because this is what finding giants does. It makes you talk about the giants and the Bible and the flood. It makes you talk about the Bible, and it makes you talk about the flood and the origin of humans. This is what it does. This is what finding giants does. This is why the Smithsonian or whoever would have gotten rid of them, because when you find giants, you talk about the Bible, you talk about the flood, you talk about how humans got here, because evolution isn't true. See? The finding of human remains at a certain depth convinced this latter writer that these Florida bones had been buried not less than 10,000 years ago. A majority of the people here believe that the recent find is that of a man who was buried thousands of years before the Bible era. So let me recap this for you. There was factually a massive human giant skeleton found in a mound, likely from the mound builders. They found it, they displayed it. The journalists come in and tell the story. Oh, in the town, everybody's celebrating. And now everybody's asking, well, how did humans actually get here? Because science is saying that we evolved, but these giants wouldn't make sense if evolution is true. And this giant is what we would expect to find if the Bible were true. Maybe the Bible's true. Well, don't worry. Here comes science. Thought police. And all they do is they go, yeah, no. Look, it's not the Bible giants and it's not the Bible timeline. The flood didn't happen. Nobody's even talking about the flood. What does it have to do with the flood? If the flood didn't happen, the Bible isn't true. These are giants, but we're going to get rid of them. Everybody will forget about this, and evolution is true because that's what we do with science. Crazy. Okay, I've lost most of my mind here, but with what little bit of it I have left, I ask you this question. Do you believe there were human giants in the past? Do you believe that this journalist is reporting on an actual giant, mound builder giant guy that was found 120 years ago? Do you believe this? Or do you think it was a fever dream? You think it just, whatever, the men of science are right, the giant isn't real, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain? What do you believe? Please tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching.